Welcome to the GardeningDad.com's gardening school. My name is Paul, and today we're going to talk about the best fruit trees to grow no matter where you live. So let's begin. In this course, we're not only going to review the best fruit trees to grow no matter where you live, but also some common environmental factors that could affect the growth of these fruit trees. So let's talk a little bit around the best fruit trees that you can plant in the ground or in pots no matter where you live. First and foremost is the apple tree. The apple tree is the perfect fruit tree to plant no matter where you live in the world. Some of the benefits about the apple tree is that it grows fast, it bears heavy harvests, and depending on the type of apple tree you get, it's relatively easy to take care of. Some of the disadvantages of growing an apple tree though is that it is very prone to pest and fungus. So it is critical to keep an eye and take care of that apple tree as soon as you plant it. The second best fruit tree to grow, no matter where you live, is going to be the pear tree. There are again numerous types of pear trees that you can grow, and this is another incredibly easy fruit tree to plant and maintain. Like the apple tree, this fruit tree very simply grows incredibly fast. Just put it in the ground, maintain it, and it will bear a heavy harvest. Some of the disadvantages, just like the apple tree, is it can be prone to certain insects and diseases. I personally have had mine infected with or infested with different types of Japanese beetles, aphids, and other types of insects. This is very easy to prevent though with just some basic maintenance work in late spring and throughout the summer. Another incredibly easy and one of the best fruit trees to grow no matter where you live is the peach tree. The peach tree, believe it or not, can flourish in almost any environment. You can plant it in the south, maybe in Georgia, or you can even plant it as far north as Vermont. The difference though is the colder it gets, the more you may want to think about planting that peach tree in a pot. This way you can bring it in the winter inside if it gets too cold. Again, peach trees grow incredibly fast and bear an unbelievable amount of fruit. Out of all the fruit trees that I have, this type of tree bears the most harvest that I've ever had, and it's only about 5 or 6 years old. Some of the disadvantages, just like we talked about, it's not as cold hardy as apple trees, as pear trees. So you may want to think about planting them in a pot and bringing indoors in the winter if you are in an area that gets extreme cold in the winter. With that being said, there are cold hardy peach trees out there, and you can find more information about this in my article about the best peach trees to grow no matter where you live. Not only that, you're going to notice a common theme. Again, peach trees can be infested. I've had Japanese beetles eat entire leaves. In addition to that, they can become prone to fungus, and you want to keep a close eye on that one. Another fruit tree that's incredibly easy to grow and makes this list of the best fruit trees is the cherry tree. The cherry tree, again, is known for its large harvest and quick growth. As you can see with most fruit trees on this list, it will take about 4 to 6 years to bear fruit and have a bountiful harvest. Cherry trees though are a little bit more difficult to maintain. Depending on the soil, depending on the conditions, if it's too cold, you may not be able to grow cherry trees unless you have them in pots. I have personally lost a few because I've planted them too late into the year and the elements just got them over the winter. Again, had I planted them in a pot, it would have done fantastic. Some of the varieties that you can plant in pots are the Romeo and Juliets, and these aren't going to grow as tall as your typical Rainier and some other type of cherry trees. One of my favorite fruit trees to grow, no matter where you live, is the plum tree. The plum tree is another incredibly easy and effective fruit tree to plant no matter where you live. Plum trees, like any other fruit tree, grows incredibly fast, only takes a few years to bear harvest, but again, becomes very prone to disease and insects. I actually had a fruit tree that was a plum tree that I just forgot to take care of. We have all been there, right? Time goes by fast, we're really busy, I forgot to take care of it, and wouldn't you believe it or not, 5-6 years in, I thought it was going to be strong enough, it succumbed to disease. Don't let that happen to you. Again, the theme here is insects and fungus or other types of disease can take down even the hardiest of fruit trees. So far we've gone over the apple tree, we've gone over the pear tree, we've gone over the cherry tree, and we've gone over the plum tree. Now let's talk about a couple other varieties that are just great to grow no matter where you live. One of my favorite, which is perfect if you live in urban areas or you don't have much property, is the fig tree. The fig tree is an amazing fruit tree that does not take up much space, and typically you're going to want to grow that in pots. In some southern regions, they plant it in the ground, and these trees become 20-30 feet tall, and you'll have more figs than what you know what to do with. But for most people growing fig trees, you're going to want to keep them in the pots, and even with this, I've been able to have figs for months at a time by just freezing them. The amount of harvest for such a small tree is unbelievable. Another benefit of fig trees, you're going to notice, they don't succumb to pests like deer, they don't succumb to insects, and they just do a very good job against any type of disease. The disadvantage of fig trees though, they are incredibly sensitive to cold weather. You're going to want to make sure you plant them in pots, and if there's any sign of frost or cold weather, bring it indoors. Recently, I brought all my fig trees out. We had some frost. I left the fruit trees in the pots, so the fig trees in the pots by the house thinking they were going to be okay. And believe it or not, that frost got a little bit of those leaves. The plants are fine. Again, they're hardy, but we just don't want to leave them out in the winter. Again, another reason not to plant them in the ground. A couple other very important fruit trees that make this list are the apricot and the nectarine fruit trees. Again, these are a couple of the fruit trees that you can grow depending on where you live, whether it's in a pot or in a ground. Here, I've grown apricot trees and they are some of the best tasting fruit. Same with nectarines. There are certain types of nectarine trees that you can grow in cold hardy zones, and then certain that obviously flourish in areas like Arizona or Florida or different types like that. Again, these are just a couple more of the fruit trees that you can grow. By this point, you should have about 6-7 ideas of fruit trees that you can grow no matter where you live. But let's talk about 3 more types of fruit trees that I love growing and you can grow anywhere, believe it or not. And that's going to be the orange tree, the lime tree, and the lemon tree. You're probably thinking, Paul, I live in a cold climate. I can't grow lemon trees. Yes, you can. You can grow citrus trees anywhere. You just have to keep them in pots and provide a little bit more maintenance than you would with an apple tree. If you live in a warmer climate that doesn't get cold in the winter, the beautiful part about it is you can plant that fruit tree in the ground and it will flourish. If you're going to grow citrus trees like the lemon tree, the orange tree, the lime tree in pots, all you have to do is put it in a pot, make sure you're watering it appropriately and providing it with enough sunlight and warmth. I've kept my citrus trees indoors where they won't get that 8, 10, 12 hours of sunlight. They might only get 6 and they still do fine. The key though is making sure you provide warmth. Warmth and heat is essential for citrus trees. If you leave them out in the cold, they will die. It doesn't take much. My recommendation, keep them above 70 degrees Fahrenheit. If you want fruit, keep it above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. At this point, we've gone over the best fruit trees to grow anywhere in the world. Again, apple trees, pear trees, cherry trees, peach trees, plum trees. We talked about the lime, the orange, and the lemon trees, and then we've also talked a little bit around the apricot trees and the nectarine trees. And don't forget about those fig trees. There are many types of fruit trees you can grow, and it doesn't take much work. Now that we've discussed the best fruit trees, let's talk a little bit more around what are some common environmental factors that could affect what you plant, where you plant, and when you plant it. First and foremost is going to be your hardiness zone. This should guide you in regards to exactly where and when and what type of fruit tree you want to grow. If you live in warm hardiness zones, if you live in the south of the United States or areas that don't get cold or don't get frost over the winters, you can grow any type of fruit tree I described in the ground without a problem. If you grow fruit trees or plant fruit trees in some hardiness zones that get colder, maybe have frost or cold winters, again, you can plant all of these fruit trees. You're just going to want to make sure you have them in gardening pots and you bring them indoors during the winter. Another common factor that can affect the growth of your fruit tree and how much fruit it bears is going to be the soil. Again, each fruit tree is going to need a specific amount or a specific range of pH level. Again, you can control this with fertilizer and with other types of ingredients to bring it within the range you want, and that will be a conversation we have at another point in another video, or you can read any of my articles about any of these fruit trees and it will tell you specifically about the pH levels that you're going to need. Time of year is another essential factor for when you plant your fruit trees. If you're going to plant your fruit trees in pots, you can really plant those any time in the year. If you're going to plant them in the ground though, I recommend late spring when it's not too hot out, but after the last frost. There's nothing worse than planting that fruit tree in the ground, having it frost happen and just kill your tree. A better time though, in my opinion, of planting fruit trees in the ground is going to be in the fall when it's not quite hot, but there's still going to be a few months left before the first frost hits. The reason for this is it allows your plants, fruit trees, to get as much nutrients and grow in a short period of time. Then it will have its first dormant winter, and this will allow it to regenerate, and then in the spring it will do a fantastic job. Put a little bit of fertilizer in the ground and you are going to be in great shape. Another common factor that you're going to want to think about when planting your fruit trees is what type of pests or what type of insects are in your area. If you plant an apple tree and you have a lot of deer, you're going to want to think about getting fence or putting it in a yard where those deer or other pests can't get to the apples. If you live in an area where there's a lot of Japanese beetles, we get them all the time here. If you live in that area, again, you're going to want to think about where do you want to put them and what maintenance or prevention steps you're going to do to prevent insects. And most importantly, you're going to want to put your fruit trees in an area of your yard that's well draining and gets full sunlight for about 8 hours a day at least. And the reason for this is if you're planting that fruit tree in an area that isn't receiving well-draining oil or well-draining soil, you are going to notice that it is more likely to become prone to root rot, where those roots of the plant just get too damp and get a fungus and die, or the tree itself won't dry out after a rain and could develop a different type of fungus. These are just some of the common factors to think about when planting your fruit trees. In addition, you're going to want to think about spacing. Do you have enough room to plant it in your yard? We plant it today, but sometimes we forget 10, 20 years from now, these trees can really overtake your yard. If you decide you don't have the area, pots are a fantastic option and you can actually control its growth. The amount of maintenance you want to have. If you grow, let's say, a fruit tree such as an apple tree or a pear tree, you're going to want to prune it. You're going to need to apply pesticides to it. You're going to want to grab that fruit right away. This is going to take a little bit more work than, let's say, a lemon tree that you put in a pot, bring it inside, and just water it every so often. So it depends on how much maintenance work you also want to do. Not only that, but what other types of trees or plants are around? While you can purchase and plant self-pollinating fruit trees, most of the trees on this list either require a pollinator, a cross-pollinator, or are going to require you manually to pollinate them, or if they are self-pollinating, they just do better with a cross-pollinator. So again, what type of plants or trees do you have in your yard? That's going to affect what factors you decide or what options you decide to plant into your yard. Again, these are just some of the options, but if you want to learn more about, let's say, how to plant, what to plant, and how to take care of an apple tree, check out my articles on thegardeningdad.com. I will give you step-by-step instructions on what to plant, when to plant it, how to take care of them, and how to harvest. So again, in this video and in this course, we reviewed the 10 best fruit trees to plant anywhere and some common factors that are going to affect what tree you decide to purchase and plant, where to plant it, when to plant it, and how to plant it. I appreciate you watching. Please subscribe, and share this video. And don't forget to find me on social media such as Instagram and Pinterest. And of course, read more about me and any gardening need you